We are back. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Guys, it is so great. It's so great to see you as always. Now, I've been taking landscape photos for a couple decades now, but that doesn't mean that I'm some kind of Jedi Master landscape photographer. In fact, it just means that I've made tons of mistakes and learned things the hard way, and that has made me a much better landscape photographer today. I think it's time to share some of my experiences with you. That way you can make strides in creating quality photos. Now, if you stick around to the end of this video, you'll learn 7 of the best landscape photography tips that I've ever learned. Some of them, many of them, I hope, will be a light bulb moment for you that will propel you to success behind the lens. So, what do you say? Pull up a seat, let's go! All right, let's start off with scout locations beforehand. No surprise, I like being spontaneous and grab my camera and heading out for random shots now and then again. But by and large, I sit down beforehand, guys, and take my time and scout the locations before I walk out the door. Look, something as simple as going to Google Maps or Street View and checking out the lay of the land, where you want to go ahead of time and where you want to shoot will help you in the long run. I also use apps like Photographer's Emirates and others to figure out when the sunrise and sunset times are going to be kicking off. Now here's something else. I'll also Google the location that I'm going to, scope out some other photos taken at the exact same location for inspiration, and it kind of, gets things going. As I'm driving out the location, I'm thinking about the shots that I saw, and it helps as a good starting point. So when I get on location, hey, the gears are already spinning. Oh, and another thing, plan to get there early. And I'm not talking about getting there 5 or 6 hours ahead of time, although, hey, that'd be pretty kick-ass. But at least give yourself an hour to get in position and get set up. That way, if you're photographing, for example, the sunrise or sunset, you're going to be ready when the magic starts to happen. Next, use a tripod. Now, if I'm leveling here with you, when I first got started in photography, I never used the tripod for shooting landscapes. I felt that I was better served hand-holding the camera. That way I could get from one spot to the next much quicker and take more photos without having to lug around a big-ass tripod and have to deal with setting that up. Looking back, I was just flat out lazy. It was a big mistake. Rushing around all over the place, trying to take as many photos as possible, it didn't do me any good. My photos, they looked rushed, and there were tons of mistakes, and honestly, if I took 200 photos, 199 of them sucked. That's not an exaggeration, and that is not a joke. They were quite bad. But when I got things kind of shifted around and really thought this through, by using the tripod, it forced me to slow things down, and that was a good thing. On one hand, in the few seconds it takes for you to set up and deploy your tripod, you can scan the surroundings for the best composition. And on the other hand, actually setting up a tripod means you can get a nice stable base to get a tack sharp photo. Likewise, with your camera on a tripod, you can get creative with long exposures without having to worry about camera shake. Even if you aren't taking long exposed photos, there are times when you need to close down the aperture to maximize the depth of field, or you need more light to get into a well-exposed photo. In those cases, a tripod is a must as well. Otherwise, your photos are going to look blurry from all that camera shake. But be sure to invest in a good tripod that is well built and durable and will last you a long time. Hey, let's call a spade a spade. I know good tripods are expensive, but by the time you buy 2 or 3 cheap tripods that just fall apart, or the legs start getting wonky, you can afford to buy a decent tripod that will last you a long time. Now, there are a number of good tripods out there, and I'm going to share with you the ones that I use, but these are ones that I've tested. For me, I like these, and I just want to share with you there are other really good tripods out there. So let's bring these all in here. I should have had these set up ahead of time. Okay, I have 3 tripods here that I'm going to share with you. Okay, so I'm a big fan of the Pro Media Gear tripods. The camera's sitting on one. Here's another one right here. These things are solid. They're not inexpensive. These are, you're going to spend close to $1,000 or over $1,000 for these tripods, but they are just amazing tripods. I love the build quality with them, and that's that. So Pro Media Gear is definitely a tripod worth looking at. In terms of portability, I'm going to bring up the Peak Design. Now, from a structural standpoint, strength standpoint, this thing is not this. It's not even close. But I've had this for a year and I've beaten the hell out of this thing, and this thing has taken everything that I've thrown at it. But it's a lot smaller, it's a lot more compact. When I'm traveling and I need to bring one tripod with me with the least amount of space taken in my bag, this thing right here is a absolute rock star. Peak Design did a really good job with this, and as you can see, this thing is tiny. And then the last tripod I'm going to bring up here is made by Colorado Tripod Company. This is their Centennial, and this is actually a pretty affordable tripod. These guys do a really great job as well. This thing, because of the angle that the legs go down, is a little bit wider than a lot of tripods, so you get a lot more stability. And they just really build a solid tripod. I actually did a review on this one not too long ago, and I'll also put a link in the description as well. So definitely recommend this as well. So in terms of Really Right Stuff makes a solid tripod. Three-legged thing makes a really good tripod. Benro has a few that are really good. Gitzo. So there's a lot of options for you guys out there. So hopefully this was a good start for you. Make sure I had him down there right. Okay. All right. Don't limit yourself to wide-angle lenses. Okay, now as many of you know, one of my favorite lenses that I'm using right now these days is the Canon 15 to 35. When I'm shooting landscapes, man, this thing is a go-to rock star. But that doesn't mean I only use wide angles, and neither should you. Shooting landscapes with a telephoto lens, for example, forces you to look at the landscapes in a completely different way. Instead of surveying the broad scene, you have to find smaller details that can stand on their own as focal point of a telephoto image. In that regard, using different focal lengths helps train you to see not just the big picture, but also the little elements in the big scene that just might be worthy of a photograph. It might be a texture on a bark on a huge redwood, or the shapes of jagged rocks in a foreground of a shot, or the way the light illuminates the tip of the mountain peak. Whatever the case, guys, experimenting with different focal lengths will go a long way in helping you develop your creative eye. Hey, not every shot will be wall-worthy. When you invest so much time and energy and money into something like photography, it can be a little frustrating if you don't get epic shots every time you go out with your camera. But the sooner that you understand that not every shot is going to be mind-blowing good, friend, the better you're going to be. Think about it this way, you're going to make mistakes. I promise you. Heck, even world-renowned photographers from National Geographic make mistakes, so the rest of us are bound to do the same as well. But what's important is that you accept that you're going to make these mistakes and you learn from the mistakes that you make. You fall down, get back up, learn from that. And that's the beauty of landscape photography. There's always something new to learn, or an old skill that you can dust off and develop even further. And here's a good one right here, one of my favorites, the why. Ask yourself why you're taking the shot. Now, it's easy to set up your gear and aim your camera at something that's pretty and hit the shutter button. But if you do that without much thought or much purpose, the photo that you take will end up in a coal pile and not on your wall. And I'm pointing over here because I have a photo here. Oh, and we have a photo right here as well. But one of the simplest things that you can do to take better landscapes photos is always ask yourself why you're taking the photo. What it is about the scene that caught your eye in the first place. For example, this photo right here I keep pointing to on this wall right here. This was in Norway last year. What caught my eye about this particular shot right here is the turquoise water, the mountains in the background that were the contrast between the snow and the rocks, and then of course you have the orange fisherman huts that are right on the water, everything. And then you have these kind of ominous hanging clouds from the skies there. It looked, for me, that's what caught my eye. But for you, when you're looking at a shot, you have to factor in, was it the light? Was it the colors? Was it the texture of something in the foreground that stood out? By asking these questions, you can then figure out what or how to highlight these things in your photo. As an example, if what caught your eye about a landscape is a spectacular sunset, then consider shifting the horizon line downward in the frame. That way, more of the shot is dedicated to the beautiful colors in the sky. It's really as simple as that. Again, taking just a few moments to stop, think, and consider what it is that captivates you about each particular scene will help you take photos that are more likely to be winning shots. Next, ask a person to be in the shot. Now, the best landscape photos aren't just beautiful and compelling, but they also tell a story. Being able to tell a story about a landscape means invoking feeling or emotion to the viewer, or in the viewer rather. And one of the best ways to do this is to incorporate a person or a man-made element into the shot. Now, this shot, for example, might evoke a little fear. Now, considering how close that person is to the canyon's edge. But more than that, adding the person to the photo gives the shot more context as well. By that, I mean that we understand scale and we understand scope of the scene much better with a familiar size object. The person in the photo, it gives a feeling of adventure too. Those wide open spaces extending out for miles in front of us. And though that person is small in the frame, I bet you noticed them pretty immediately, didn't you? Now, having that added focal point in the photo helps grab people's attention, makes them wonder who that person is, what the scene looks like from their vantage point, and so forth. The more you can get people thinking about your photos, the better they will perceive them to begin with. Okay, this one's gonna hit it home for a lot of folks here, including myself at times. Laziness is the enemy. I like to visit national parks when I can because places like Yosemite and Joshua Tree are home to some of the most iconic landscapes that you can find. Now, when I go to these places, I'm always astonished at how many people are gathered with their cameras at the nearest lookout of the parking lot, if they even get out of their cars at all. Now, granted, I know many people who don't have the time or the desire to keep walking or hiking out to find better vantage points. But if you want to take the best photos, you can't be a lazy photographer. Now, let's be clear, you don't have to strap a backpack or go hiking for 2 days to get off the beaten path for an overlook either. Instead, friend, take the time, survey the scene, look around for paths or trails that might take you to a place that offers simply a better vantage point where you can possibly get that landscape shot that you're after. Look around for paths or trails that might take you to a place that offers a different point of view of the landscape that you want to photograph. Find ways to get up or down or move left to right. You never know if 50 yards down the trail is a fantastic overlook that will give you a better view if you don't go looking for it in the first place. In other words, don't settle for that so-so shot. Put in the hard work of planning, being patient, and being committed to getting the best photos that you can. And soon you're gonna find the number of bad photos that you take starts to go down and the number of keepers starts going up. All right, guys, that was a wrap. I hope you found these tips as helpful as I have over the years. If you have some awesome landscape tips of your own, hey, don't be shy. Share them down in the comments below. And that's it, friend. If you found some value out of this video here, if you like this video, hit the like button. If you're currently not subscribed to the channel, hit the subscribe button. And while you're at it, smash the hell out of that bell to be notified each time we come out with a new video. And with that said, my son has been bugging me today. No, not really bugging me, but he's been egging me today to get out and ride bikes because it's a gorgeous day. Actually, it's pretty hot out, but we're going to go ride bikes. You have a good evening. Stay healthy, stay safe, and get out there and create your best shot.